How are we doing here?
You're on camera.
Are you happy with it? Are you good guys with grades? Yeah.
Well, I'm not good, but
I'm not good on grades.
You can go check it. Oh, it's
just kidding.
Jim had 89%. We were even able to not check it. Thank you. So I think with the little dash is so still do it. Do you have this kind once you do an email, how do you grade? No, hypothesis on it did only like 2 years. And then we're good with grades. We're good with grades. Good with grades. Look at anything you might do. And then you have email we have a warning. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen. I brought tissue. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready to ask your table, you guys good? Questions with your grades? Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, as you're finally looking at wrapping things up right now, there are a couple things. First, end of a semester is really a big marking period. I know throughout this semester since September, we have all these little deadlines or little sort of check-in points. You have fourth Friday, so if you're falling behind, it sort of gives you a way to say, okay, let's step it up here. Or we have progress reports. But once the semester grade goes in for all your classes, it's final. There's no changing it. Patrick Henry or whatever high school you decide to go to, they receive this semester grade. So next Monday, all of your grades are wiped out and you start fresh. So this is really one or two of the most important grading periods of all of your classes. For science fair, for science, for math, for English, really make sure that you have done everything you possibly can. So instead of getting that B+, instead of getting that 89%, this would be the last time that you have that little opportunity to get that bumped up to an A, which will help. Just a little extra thought. Okay, you good? Okay. Down with grades. iPads. Talked a little bit about this already. I'm hoping to start getting these in your hand next week. We have 24 of them that we get to use. So we don't have enough for everybody, but a lot of the things we do there, we can do on our Macs too, so we'll be able to interchange them. I'll tell you more about that next week, but I'm really excited about getting those out there. Science fair. Before we get to our yearbooks, let's talk science fair. Everyone, can maybe close your computers? Carefully close your computers. Thank you. I know some of you are working on updating some of your assignments, but you need to save any changes and close your computers. I might give you some time later to work on it, depending on this next conversation that we have. Okay, so science fair has been a huge part of your year so far. After tomorrow, you get to completely move on from it. So I know a lot of you I've seen or have heard from via email that you're sort of stressing about different things. A couple quick tips from me, and then I want to check in to see how you're doing. Last year, I was here for, my room was a presentation room. So it was me, one other teacher, I'd say probably 6 or 7 parents, and probably less than 10 students, about 10. Does that sound right? Is that the same this year? Yeah. About 10. We put circles around, there's a circle of chairs that came around the room, they set up their boards, 1 or 2 students got up here and presented, and it was pretty awesome. However, there was clear problems with a couple little things that you can easily do, and first is dress code. Girls, 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 please do not come dressed with short skirts. You might not think it's short, but I guarantee the people that are grading you and evaluating you and deciding if you're going on to the next level will be judging you on what you're wearing. You want business attire, not high school party attire or middle school party attire. 2 different things. It's not something you'd wear to a quinceañera. It's not something that you would wear to a birthday party. It's professional. So, with that being said, I know the rule is your skirts have to be longer or dresses have to be longer than your fingertips. Now, the problem with that is a lot of you can make your skirts and dresses as long as your fingertips if you stand a certain way and you like stretch it out. But once you start moving and once you start standing in front of a classroom, it doesn't always stay there. So when you are judging and trying to figure out exactly what you're going to be wearing for science fair tomorrow, even if you picked out the most adorable outfit and went shopping, you really need to test it to make sure when you're moving and presenting to a board how that skirt goes. Because I know that if I videotaped some of the girls that were presenting in my room last year, they would be embarrassed about what we were seeing. Okay? Think professionally. Students that go on to the next level, you guys get sort of this extra star on your file when you go to Patrick Henry. You get to put that on your college transcripts, an application. It's a humongous piece, sort of a bonus thing that you get to put on there where when you're applying to colleges and they see something like that on there where you presented at Greater San Diego, it is worth it. So you want to do everything you can to get yourselves there. RJ?
What if you don't want to go on to the next level?
If you don't want to get on to the next level, that's fine. But even if you don't want to be able to get accepted, I'd say try to. Think big picture. Sometimes the things that are worth doing aren't always the easiest things. And I know if I was in middle school and I had to sit and stand up here and present in front of a group of adults that I didn't know, kids that I probably don't know because they're mixing up all your classes, right? So it's not like it's the kids even in your classes, it might be stranger kids that you don't know. It's scary, it's really scary. But it's one of those things that when it's over, if you stepped up and met your fear, it's going to be worth it in the end. It will be. It'll be great. Even if you get up and flop, you still get a lot of credit, right? So even if you get up and you didn't finish your project, at least get up there and share what you have done. You'll do fantastic. Okay? Yes?
Has anyone ever been so nervous when they're presenting, like you start sweating, that whole shirt's like...
I've seen some really, really, really nervous students in the past. I've had students that got so nervous that I could tell that they were so nervous, so I suggested, hey, why don't you sit down for a few minutes, catch your breath, and then when you're finished, you can come back up. And that's been fine too. And you don't get docked points. The only thing people aren't sitting down ready to criticize you. It's just getting up and sharing. So I don't take you as being someone that's going to be so fearful of the limelight that you're going to be upset. But you're worried about other people. Or just one. Yeah, because you're not nervous. Exactly.
Can you volunteer when you go up?
The way that teachers are asked to do it is that, or the way I know I've done it, I think this is the way most teachers do, they'll ask for volunteers. And so up here I make a list of who wants to go first, who wants to go second, so people can volunteer to go first, and then I'll take volunteers, and then after that, we sort of decide from there. A lot of kids, if I were you, so half of you go first, then you have a little break, and then you have another half. If I was you, I'd get it over with. I would get it over with. It's hard to be the first, but the first,
Yeah,
but you have nobody to be compared to. And then you get to just enjoy the rest without stress. Natalie.
Are they going to be asking questions about your project?
Great question. So raise your hand. Raise your hand if you feel like you're pretty confident with this presentation. raise your hand if you think by tomorrow you'll be confident enough to get all your final preparations. Raise your hand if no matter how prepared you are, you're going to be a nervous wreck. Admit it. There are more of you in here.
Wait, what if you don't come to school tomorrow?
You don't get those credits.
It's 60 points.
I know, but I'm always happy.
Becky, you'll do fantastic. Okay, so I want to answer Natalie's question, but I need your attention first.
Oh,
Taylor, can you keep the computer flat on your desk? So Natalie asked a great question about questions. So, everyone in the room is going to be required to ask so many questions. So when you are in the audience, when you're a spectator, your job is going to be to come up with questions for the people presenting. You don't have to ask every single person a question, but you do have to ask so many questions. So since you have to ask questions, be prepared for questions. If you don't know the answer, take the time to think about it, and then you can say, you know, I'm not sure about that. That would be some further research I would have to do. So have a line sort of ready. So people might ask you questions where you might know the answer, but you get sort of stunned with the question. Take the time to think about it. Because what a lot of kids do, they'll listen to the question, they'll get sort of scared, and then they'll just say, I don't know. So wait, if someone asks you a question you're really not sure, take a second to think about it, look at your board, and then say, you know, I'm not sure about that, I'll have to look at my research. Or, you know, I never came across that question, but that might be a good one. Or maybe that'll be for me for next year to look into. So have some good questions sort of in the waiting. Zach?
What's the most confusing questions for somebody asked?
There have been some confusing ones. And some questions where most of the time what I've seen is that students get comfortable with certain questions and they sort of ask the same questions. It was like, what was your controlled variable? What was, a lot of questions I've heard, or a lot of times I hear, what was a problem that you encountered in your testing? What was the most difficult part? Can you explain your data to me again? I've heard that a lot from parents, where really when you're in your presentation, explain your data. We had a meeting with Mr. Negus, and Mr. Negus sat us all down, and he said, the most important part of the Science Fair project is the data that you collected. So take the time, when you practice your presentations, make sure you practice going over your data. Take the time of pointing it out and really explaining it. Pretend the people in the room are kindergartners and break it down. This is a pie chart showing, or this is a line graph showing change over time. Here are the two things I'm comparing. I'm comparing apples to the rate of blah, 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 blah. And so, and then go through it. So on day 1 it was this, on day 2 it was this, and then you can see the trend in the data. Okay? Don't just point and say, this is my data, this is this. Okay? Question? So, raise your hand if you're pretty much done with your binder, you just need to put it all together.
I'm already done.
I need to make my paper.
Raise your hand if you need to type some more things up
For what?
for Science Fair. Everything. Raise your hand if you would appreciate some digital literacy time to work on Science Fair. Raise your hand high. I need you to be honest because I need some people working on yearbook, but I will give you some of my digital literacy time. Science Fair is huge for you, so I know some of you might need some extra time. Raise your hand. So that will help me decide what your mission is. Okay. Before we go back to working on Science Fair, let's talk about yearbook spreads. Yearbook spreads, ladies and gentlemen. So last class when you were in here, I had you start talking about your 8th grade intro page. This is really important. The intro page in the past has been completed by one group, but I am going to have the editors, the main editors, complete this page for you. So we're going to be looking over what you have typed, and they're going to be taking it to put together the summaries. But I need you to submit this to me. So last class, when you were here with the substitute teacher, raise your hand if you finished writing out your summaries. Raise your hand if you typed up your summaries.
I typed up the tape.
Okay. So where we're going to pick up right now is I'm going to have us type these up and then submit them to Moodle. And then we're going to talk about our next script. Question, Carlos? No. Okay. So this is what I want you to do. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please open up the file you started typing on this, or open up a new one. You may open up a Word document or a Pages document. I'm going to add... Can you pass these out? Valerie, can you guys pass these out?
He didn't just say that. He did.